and welcome to From the Ground Up Show. Today, we're doing things a little bit differently. As you can see, my sidekick, Jazz Tacker, is not with me, but I have three new amazing sidekicks joining me. I got Nick, I got Matt, and I got Drew, and I think I said all their names in order. And you guys are actually going to find this a little bit amusing because we're both content creators, and I thought I was going to be on their podcast today. They thought they were going to be on my podcast today. But the beauty of being in content creation, we roll with it. And so we're doing the From the Ground Up show today, and I haven't prepared yet, so it's going to be super conversational, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm Nick.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Drew. And thanks for having us, Laura. We are part of a collective, a group of young, strapping men that know a bunch about appliances and a bunch about content creation. Mm-hmm. So that's what we do. We educate our listeners, our watchers, our followers about how to do things in your home correctly, and mostly to do with large kitchen appliances. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think initially people will be like, wow, so there's content about just appliances. But, to your audience, Laura, I think the biggest thing is everything can be content. And these days it's almost like just take a shot, because everything can be content. You may be like, hey, I've done brick and mortar sales for a retail location forever. I've heard of this thing called TikTok. Shoot a TikTok and suddenly you're going to get, hundreds of thousands of views. You just don't really know. So everything can be content. And that's what kind of brought us to Appliance Educator. Was it seemed pretty underserved, and it's a question being asked.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, we're kind of, call it serendipity, I guess, that we're speaking to each other today, because back in 2018 is actually when I helped my business partner for the media company start a podcast. And it really was with the intent of helping to educate our clients. So
real estate, it gets a lot of showing on TV. So it may seem obvious, to my audience, that real estate agents should be creating content, where maybe when you go down the appliance route, people don't necessarily look at it that way. But really, we wanted to educate our current client base. It wasn't about us going out and speaking to the masses. It was really about us establishing further relationships with our current clients, providing them as much value as possible, giving really away all of the trade secrets, so that hopefully the people who do choose to buy and sell their home and they don't want to actually do it on their own, they're actually going to come back to the people who helped educate them. I'm hoping to get a sense from you guys, what was that light bulb moment that made you think content is for us, and what was the intent going into it?
You kind of hit it on the head there. Not making content for the masses, but kind of finding the niche that you are excited about or know a lot about, and fulfilling that. And so with us, one thing I always like doing is DIY. And so whenever I have repairs in my home, I'm more hesitant to call a repairman or a handyman to pay somebody else to do something that I could probably do myself. And I also enjoy finding out how things work. And so for me, it was going online, and I found some videos that weren't the best, or just a guy with his iPhone kind of not really showing you how to do what he's doing, but you kind of get the idea of it. And so I kind of saw an opening for a niche and thought we could start making content on how to repair your appliances, basically to help people maintain their appliances, which overall can help them save money and is really good for the environment as well. So you're not throwing away appliances and buying new ones. Because a lot of stuff, you can replace parts and make it last a lot longer than it was intended to be used.
And on top of that, all of us have a background in production or marketing of some sort, so that we know what a good content looks like and how it's made properly, and how to, get a target audience hit with it.
You mentioning that you had a background in marketing. I too have a background in marketing. I did my MBA many, many years ago, but I did focus on marketing and communications. And I think where a lot of people might get hung up if they don't have a background in marketing, they think, well, maybe this isn't for me. This is really just for people who are into advertising, or perhaps they think it's just for, like I said, real estate agents or small business owners. I think a lot of people can actually use content to open up a lot of doors for them. So even people who might be watching and listening right now, and they're kind of working their 9-to-5 job, and they don't necessarily see a reason for it, I always caution people to say, think about it a bit more broadly. You're actually, at the end of the day, really promoting yourself, because your face is going to be on anything. It's your thoughts. And by promoting yourself and creating a really strong personal brand, you're able to open up so many doors. I mean, I was a real estate agent for the last 8 years, and it wasn't till last year where I thought, maybe I can start a media company, right? That never was a dream of mine, but that only really came through me producing content around what I do, becoming an expert in that space, building that trust with people that now they're suddenly trusting me to kind of broaden my horizons. I find it so interesting that you guys went down this route with appliances, and I want to know, because a lot of clients will say, look, I just don't know who would listen. I don't know who would care what I have to say about XYZ. And I'm sure you guys at some point might have said, like, is there a big enough audience around this? Can you guys, one of you, both of you, or all three of you, explain kind of like the fears going into it?
Actually, I think that's a great way to kind of talk about how we each came on board with it. Because, and Laura, I think something you brought up that was really important is like, engagement and relationship building is really important in every facet of business. So even though it's like, hey, I may not have a marketing degree, you still have a relationship to clientele or anyone who may be interested in your business. And that's what this does. It puts a face to it. It creates engagement and that like foundation of relationship. Someone's going to come back and say, boy, I love listening to her podcast about real estate. So when I want to buy a house, if I had the opportunity to call the person who's informed me in the market anyways, I would. So, it really comes from that. But originally where I kind of came involved is I used to do web design and apps and had a background in graphic design and more traditional retail marketing. And Matt was working here on these videos and I was like, well, and again, this is not my field. I wasn't trained in it, but I was like, well, let's update the website. Let's get some socials out there. Let's like update the account and really start to treat this as a brand. And then the next best thing was I just went on YouTube and was like, who's in this space talking about it? And there's a couple big players, but what I kind of quickly identified was, well, there's a couple big players because it's an underserved market. And so the few people making content are just kind of running roughshod over dominance in the category, which says to me, there's a ripe opportunity here. And so when you're kind of like, who's going to listen? I think that was always a question in our mind of like, who's going to watch these? So at first our approach was always like, why not position the video content we originally around? How do I install a dishwasher? How do I connect this line? Because I mean, in this day and age, I think, as a young person, when you're kind of, do you call your dad or do you search that term in Google or YouTube? Is pretty common practice on a lot.
That's millennials 101 right there.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I'm going to call my dad or am I going to like suck it up and go on Google and see a video? And, that's kind of strike one, strike two thinking for a lot of problem solving. So I was like, let's start to try to position it around that. And then from there, we had some other brands who wanted to work with us and they were interested. And some people were like, this is cool. This is great. I mean, Matt does phenomenal work on the video side. So we've always been like, hey, if you've got great ammunition content wise for me as a marketer, I'm like, well, we can do something with this. And then it was always kind of a request of like, what about a podcast? What about a podcast? If you can't tell already, I like to talk. So Nick, who's got a background in audio and event production, when he came on board, we were like, we can really do this. Let's start out. And at first we were kind of like, what are we even gonna, we toyed around even with like just doing an interview with you, Matt, and being like, tell me about the first time you used a hammer. Or, I mean, these aren't great ideas. I'll be totally honest with you, but you got to start somewhere. I'd say that's the other piece. So that's kind of what brought us all together. And then Nick, if you want to kind of speak to where it's gone since those very early days.
Yeah. We kind of just wanted to put our personalities. We're all pretty strong personality people. So if we could put that on camera, on audio, record it, we feel like somebody's going to catch on and like it. But yeah, and it's grown exponentially. The podcast hasn't even been around a year yet. And it's really catching on. It's great. We get a lot of great feedback about it. It's entertaining, but also educational. And that's what we aim for. And that's, ultimately what the goal is to educate our following and just try to help.
It's such an interesting point. I always say to people who are thinking about producing your own content is, you want to look at it two ways. You can either be educational or you can be entertaining. And the best of both worlds would be edutainment. So we kind of use that term a lot around here. And when we got started in our podcast journey, nobody here on the team had at that time. The team was me and Jazz, and we don't have the same kind of tech background. It sounds like you guys are like pretty familiar with tech. I maybe am like a really old millennial, and so that doesn't resonate with me so much. And so I Googled a lot of it, like how to start a podcast, how to do XYZ. And we did it with a crappy little microphone, and we weren't even producing the content on video when we first got started. And I always urge people, like, you got to just start somewhere. You don't need a team of people who are audio experts. You don't need the fancy cameras and everything like that. I'm sure you guys maybe had a little bit of step above some of us, but if you don't have that tech background, you don't need all that stuff. Like, what's your advice to people who say, all I have is an iPhone right now? Like, what would you guys say to people like that trying to produce content?
Instagram and TikTok are growing faster than anything, and it's designed to be shot on and shown on a phone. You have probably one of the best tools to do live stream. You can, do it again, TikTok and Instagram. I mean, I'm old. I don't have accounts on these, but from all the young folks we interact with in our marketing, these platforms are crushing it. So your iPhone is almost more than enough as far as the video, audio quality, and the recording capacity, and the fact that you can master it right there and upload it.
And to take on that as well, it's like, we have like good cameras, nice equipment, but then we're editing it to fit on a phone, to look good on a phone that's not being viewed on your 16:9. It's actually the complete opposite. It's a 9:16. So there you go. Take that iPhone and run with it.
I do have an analogy kind of along these lines that are really good for small business owners that are wanting to get started with content. So there's a studio, it's a woodworking studio, I think in Oregon or Washington, called Blacktail Studio. But it's one guy out of his garage, and he does woodworking. It started out as a hobby. He worked full time. This is a hobby, and he started filming what he's doing woodworking wise. He does a lot of river tables with epoxy, and was filming that, getting followers. But he started getting a ton of business from that, and so he'd only post a video here and there. But through slowly growing his brand without a whole team, now he makes over $1 million a year just with having his own studio in his garage making woodworking. So he gets sales from that. So almost like free marketing. He doesn't pay for advertising or marketing, just the content he creates.
I think a way to break this down to any small business owner is like traditional marketing, which I used to work in myself. I mean, I've done everything from fulfilling for large media conglomerates on websites, print ad, billboard. So I've seen it. I know marketing isn't cheap. And I think for a lot of like entrepreneurs and small businesses, you're like, do I have a marketing budget? And when you look at the financials, you're probably saying no. So you can do high impact marketing effectively for free with the phone in your pocket in your normal business hours. So if you look at it that way, you don't need a marketing team. You don't need, some young whiz right out of college. Just make stuff, because at the other side is there's probably somebody looking at something online in your industry. The world has changed. It doesn't matter how niche your hobby is. You and the other 3 people in the globe who care about it are probably all going to put some data into the internet around it, looking for it. So when you find them, you found an audience. And the other 2 things I would say is engagement doesn't care if they're laughing with you or laughing at you. So make something, because I'd say there's a lot of that on Appliance Educator. I'm like, I don't care if they're laughing at me or with me, they're laughing.
Same.
So target hit. And the other thing is, if you're not doing anything right now, if you go do something, it will gain momentum. And so I think you'll be surprised. Just go take that first shot, because again, you may say, boy, it's a niche market. I'm the only guy making these inverted widgets on the West Coast of this place at this time. And you go online and there's going to be one other person who cares about that. And boom, you have an audience, you have an interaction, you have an engagement, and it can only grow from there. So it's an incredibly cost-effective way to get your foot in the door with just marketing.
You guys have given so many golden nuggets here, and I really appreciate your patience on our side, because we're obviously having some tech issues and you guys are just talking right through it. And I think this really goes to prove the point to everybody. It doesn't have to be a 15-man show where no hiccups happen. It's A, you can do a lot of things in post, but B, it's also great to just learn how to roll with the punches. This is real life. Shit happens. Things fuck up all the time. And yes, I do swear on my podcast. And you got to just figure it out as you go along. And that's really how you're going to learn. It's how you're going to grow. And what I actually think is best from it is that's how you build that vulnerability aspect with your audience, by sharing something about yourself or showing the failures in what you do every day in life. You're essentially saying to the world, like, I'm not perfect and it's okay. And I just find that that's such an obvious way to be able to build connections with your audience. Matt, I wanted to go back to something you said a little bit ago about answering how-to questions. I think it was you, Matt, who had brought it up, where people had questions. So how can we answer them?
Where do you guys get your list of topics from?
To start off, I think we started with videos of kind of stuff that I was even looking for myself, like how do I do this? And I didn't really know. And so a lot of our earlier videos were me not knowing what I'm doing, making a video how to do it. And so I'm kind of like, I need to figure this
It's
out.
still sometimes like that too.
Yeah,
I'd say it hasn't changed much.
Yeah. But it's really just diving in. And that's the hardest part is getting started. But once you get started on it, you can start seeing and like learning as you go. That's the best thing to do. The worst thing to do is do nothing and sit back and then wait for something to happen or wait till you're ready. Really just start now. If you're thinking about starting, just start now and then you'll start learning the process. But later on, we started getting a lot better. Like when Drew came on and Nick came on, they really helped round the brand out. And we started looking more of analytics of like kind of doing Google searches of who's looking for what thing had to do with an appliance. It's like,
yeah, there's that thing called Google, right? That gives you a lot of answers about things. And I know sometimes people don't think it's that obvious. I say, look, if you're getting an email, in your email, you're running your business, right? You get emails from clients, or you're on the phone with a client, or you're face to face with the client, and you get asked a question over lunch, over coffee, whatever it is. Jot that question down, because chances are if that person had that question, at least 10 other people are going to have that question. So take that information and spew that out into the world and start answering questions en masse. And the beauty in doing something like that is now you don't have to have those one-on-one conversations, because you only have, say, 9 hours a day to be working, right? So at least by answering a question, putting something on YouTube or on Instagram, answering those questions that people have, your business is still working for you when you're sleeping. Right. And as you mentioned, you can go on Google. There's Answer Socrates, which is a site that I go to. You type in the industry that you're looking to get questions on, and it answers, and it gives you a bunch of questions that are the most popular questions that people are asking. So those are great places to start. Guys, I'm actually a little bit scared that my whole system's just going to blow up. And so I want to kind of wrap it up here before it turns off again. Maybe each of you can end off the show today with maybe one great piece of advice that you would have either given yourself back when you first started doing the content, or that you'd give to any new person who's thinking about it.
My big one would just be kind of to your last point. Just film everything. Just make a ton of stuff. It's like a lottery ticket. You might make 100 videos and no one watches any of them, and then 100 people watch one. It's happened. And as much as we've mentioned analytics and stuff, you can look all day at the numbers. If you aren't making any content, those numbers don't matter. Just go make some stuff. Mm-hmm. It's really not that scary. Dive in. It'll suck. I don't know a single podcaster who's like, my first 10 episodes are dynamite. So just go for it. You have nothing to lose. And it's free for entrepreneurs. It's free marketing. Do it. It's free. It's a free marketing.
So for me,
love that.
It's a really simple quote that boils down something that I kind of hold to my heart. But if you're thinking about doing something, there's a quote I heard. I'm not sure who said it. I can't attest to whoever said it. But the quote is, a year from now, you'll wish you had started today. And so don't look back and say, dang, if I'd started last year, I'd be so much further ahead now. Just start right now. And incrementally, it'll just keep growing. And so you don't want to be a year or 2 years and like, I should have started then. If you just start now, you'll be a lot happier a year from now, and just to see how much growth you've done.
Yeah. And on top of all that, just have fun. Like, this is content creation. It's not meant to be, 5-star Hollywood production. It's just supposed to get a message out there and see if it hits. And, if you're not having fun doing it, find something else to do then.
I'm going to add my 2 cents onto this. And that's have a little bit of humility when you're getting started. A lot of people actually say to me, well, don't I need 6,000 followers first before I start? And what if, my hair looks funny and people are making fun of me? Guess what? No one is watching you when you get started. No one cares that much about you because you're just getting started. So you have an audience of 2, and it's your mom and your best friend. That's who's watching you. So use that time at the beginning to iron it all out, to get out all the mistakes. And then you'll see as you start to grow the audience, now you've already got a couple under your belt and you're already that much better. And trust me, people love to be part of the journey. The best thing that I hear people say is, oh, you know who I knew? I knew Gary Vee back when he had no followers. And I knew this person before they were anybody. People want to be part of your come up. So let them be a fly on the wall. Let them see the behind the scenes and all of the things that you're up to so that they can be a part of that journey. Guys, I really, really appreciate you joining me and giving all these amazing tips to my audience. Thank you so, so much. I don't think I've ever actually hosted 3 guys, so I'm sorry if I cut a little bit of you off. I'm used to 1 person. But again, to the audience, you got to just push yourself. We literally turned the camera on today and we didn't know what was going to come out of this, but we're all doing it anyways. And the beauty is I'm going to take some pieces of content out of this today. And you guys, I hope, will take some out as well. And we're going to both share them. And now my community is seeing your community seeing my community. And that's the beauty of this, right?
Yep. Stronger
Absolutely.
together.
Absolutely.
Yep. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.
Thanks.